two phrases that we, talk about a lot. You measure what matters, and you can only expect what you inspect. Why are we so adamant about constantly evaluating everything?
Well, Jesus told a parable one time about a man who gave some talents to a group of 3 men. When he came back, 2 of them had doubled the investment. One of them had hid the investment, dug it up, brought it to the master, and thought he had at least met the standard. Jesus called him He called him wicked and lazy. Wiki is the original Greek and Aramaic term. I don't know that for sure because I was only in Greek for 2.5 weeks. He said, you're wicked and you're lazy. And he took what he had away and gave it to the other man. And people say stuff like, well, God doesn't care about numbers. Really? He about cussed that one guy out because he didn't produce on the investment. Sounds like he cares about it to me. And I don't know where people get off thinking that God's not into accountability, that God's not into measurement, that God's not into quantification. I think that's our fuzzy interpretation of how we maybe wish God was. Because if I can take the accountability out of it, then I can clock out and cop out and say, well, we didn't meet the goal, but we did our very best for God. And I don't even like that phrase, we did the best we could do. Rarely is that true. When's the last time you really did the best you could do? You mean you really did the absolute best you could do? I used to say that about book reports in high school. And then I had this one teacher, I'd be like, Miss Cox, I did the best I could do. I did the best I could do. I did the best I could do. I know it's a day late, but I did the best I could do. I did the best I could do. And one time, that teacher that I just mentioned, Miss Cox, she goes, you didn't do the best you could do. You did the best you could do when you started 3 days before the project was due. You've known about it for 3 months. Don't tell me that was the best you could do. It wasn't the best you could do. You fail. It was the best thing she ever did for me. Because all my other teachers, they were like, oh, cool. Well, good guy. I was very convincing, good with my words. But she was like, I'm not buying it. No, absolutely not. It's not the best you could do. You're very talented, you're very gifted, and you're very lazy, and you didn't plan, and you didn't care. So no, you fail. And if you fail this course, then you fail this course. You're gonna do better. And I did. And it taught me something. So then, a lot of times, within the context of measuring things, it can feel corporate. It can feel like we take the heart out of it. It can feel like, in some ways, we're trying to systematize something that God intends to be organic. And the only thing I know to tell you in defense of that is that God is, although he's not an accountant, God is a result-oriented God. He gives commands, he expects them to be obeyed. He delivers results. We cannot approach the most important thing in the world. We can't approach the most important thing in the world without having the best systems possible that we can create to measure whether or not we're doing it effectively. If you tell me that you care about what you're doing, then I'm going to expect to see where you're analyzing what you're doing to see if you can do it better. And that's the hardest thing for me as a leader, is that I can do a lot of stuff and enjoy doing it if I never have to back up and look at whether what I'm doing is really working. Yeah. And it's a lot easier to just carry out instructions and carry out orders that come from somebody who's your boss than it is to actually take the mindset of a leader. Because a leader says, not only am I going to plan the event, but I'm going to understand why we planned the event. I'm going to understand how it's connected to everything else we're doing. If that means I've got to take 3 people to lunch, if that means I've got to do some research and go back and look at some stuff online, if I'm a leader, I'm going to understand the connection. I'm going to not only deliver the result, but I'm going to analyze the result, and I'm going to systematize my findings because I'm a leader. Right. That's what leaders do. Leaders ask not just what and how, but why. Yeah. And leaders say, why am I doing this? Leaders say, would I do it again? How can I make it better? So to think like a leader means measuring. And the reason I measure, we say that phrase, we measure what matters. We say the phrase, what was the other one again? I forgot it already. Count people because people count. That's another one. You can only expect what you inspect. None of those were original with us, but they resonate with me because I don't think you should run the church sloppy. And I don't think you should run God's business sloppy and then blame it on him. I think instead we should say, if there's any dollar that ought to be accounted for, It's the tithe dollar of a single mom. So if I won't measure that, if I don't think that I should count how many people are coming to church and think long and hard about the metrics and the percent growth and present all of that, if I'm not into analyzing that stuff, then what I'm really saying about the work that we're doing is that it's child's play. Because you do measure what matters. Nobody in their right mind, and I got this from, I believe, Andy Stanley, would call their financial advisor and say, hey, can I get a report? I haven't seen any portfolio stuff lately. I'd like to know how my accounts are doing. And if the money manager said back, well, we don't really track all that stuff. We just do the best we can with that. And you just need to trust us that we're doing a good job with your money because we promise we care. Nobody in their right mind would keep their money with that money manager. Yet that's the way that most churches are run. We don't really measure it. We don't really see if we're making any progress, if we're touching any lives, because we don't want to feel cold. We don't want to feel corporate. We want to feel warm. But I would say that the greatest way that I can express care to people is to care about the thing that they're invested in and make sure it's maximizing. And I take that real seriously. And to me, it's a holy thing. And to me, preparing the budget is as spiritual as writing a sermon.